The first thing that I did here was to cream my butter with sugar. Sometimes when you want to cream the butter and the sugar and you're not fast about it, it will be very, very difficult for you to do. So whenever you're whisking this together, you need to be very fast about it. So the next thing that will help you to make sure that the butter and the sugar are well creamed up is using vegetable oil. So I used 2 spoons, that's tablespoons of vegetable oil to lighten up and to loosen up the butter and the sugar mixture. So you cream this butter and sugar until it doubles or rather triples in size and changes the color from yellow to white, like you can see that I did here. So in another bowl plate, I sifted my flour. I used 2 cups of flour. Reason why you should sift your flour is so that the flour can become very fluffy and you don't have lumps in your cake. Alright, so by the end of the video, you see how creamy and buttery the cake mixture looks like. So after sifting the flour, I added 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Alright, so like you can see now that if I'm making just 1 cup of flour, I'll be using just 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Now that I'm using 2 cups of flour, I'm using 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And this was the cocoa powder that I added to this. So reason why I added cocoa powder to this is I'm a fan of chocolate cake, but because I don't have enough chocolate cocoa powder at home, I use the little that I have to make it up. So after pouring the cocoa powder, I mix it together to incorporate very well. And in another plate, I had to start breaking my eggs. So I used 3 eggs, large eggs for this cake making. But you can use 4 eggs, but 3 was just okay for me and perfect. But I removed the yolk. Alright? You can leave the yolk if you want to, but I just wanted the cake to rise more than it should. And once it rises more than it should, it's going to be firm. Okay? So I poured in the egg yolk into the butter mixture and turned it very well to incorporate very nicely. All right. So after doing that, I started adding my choice of flavor. So I used Gando's flavor. This Gando's flavor, the vanilla flavor, is really condensed. Like even if you put just 2 covers of this Gando's flavor, the taste and the aroma of your cake will be so superb and very different and very delicious. So that's why I use this flavor. The next thing that I did was to add the milk. Right, I mixed it, turned it very well to still incorporate very well. So after mixing, adding the milk to the butter mixture, I brought my dried ingredients, made a hole in the middle of it. Sometimes when people make their cake, they just use the flour and start pouring it into the liquid mixture. You can always make your cake whichever way you want to. All you need is just the right quantities that will give you exactly what you want, okay? So that's just making a cake is not about, it's not a difficult thing to do. It's not some kind of preparations that we have to do about it and that. No, it's something that you can just do in few minutes and you're done. So because the liquid mixture wasn't enough, that's why I left some milk because I knew that I was going to use it to, make up with this. So I poured in another milk, the leftover milks, and I started mixing it very well so that it can become light, okay, and creamy and milky. So that's just what I did. Now, after I have, poured it in and mixed it to this point, I brought my egg white. That's the egg white here. So I started whisking it. That is gonna give me the reason why I, separated the whites from the yolk is that I want the cake to be, like I said, to rise like more than it should. You're gonna see that at the end of the video. So I added like 2 tablespoons of sugar, okay, and whisked it again. Then I added another 2 tablespoons of sugar and whisked it again. All right. So voila, I was done with the mixing. This was all I needed. I didn't want it to have become stiff, like become a stiff beat, no, because I knew that I was going to keep pouring it into this batter mixture. So you can see what I'm doing right now. So I was whisking it together, mixing it together to lighten up the batter. Please, I want you to like this video if you find it very helpful. So after that, I, used my spatula to scrape off the excess that was leaning on the bowl plate. And the next thing I did was to finish up with the buttering of the pan, okay? Because by now, I just wanted to know that you should, have on your oven so that it will become hot. So by the time you pour in the cake mixture into this pan, you pop it into your oven immediately. So this was the batter. I brought it back and I added the last, white egg whites that I whisked. So this time around it's going to, make it to become so light in texture. So see what I was doing. So you can see this cake batter is seeming like peanut butter. It seemed like peanut butter. So I finished up with the last, quantity that was left in the bowl plate, and I started doing it this way so that it will be separated and not become very clumped together to itself. So you can see what I'm doing. This cake was really delicious. I loved the texture of the cake. It was soft, it didn't blow up and got down immediately. Like I said, that I did not use oven in baking this cake. What I used was my pot on top of my stove. Okay, so you're going to see how I did that. All right, so after pouring in the cake mixture into the cake pan, I started sprinkling it with coconut chips and mixed fruit. The reason why we do this is just to deflate some bubbles that are trapped in the cake batter. So this was the coconut chips that I, started sprinkling on top of this cake, the coconut chips. So it made the topmost layer of the cake to be beautifully and well decorated. So you can see this was the part, my pressure pot, and salt. That's what I'm using. So there's no need, even if you don't have an oven, this is going to give you exactly what you want. Look at it, it was still rise. I just wanted to see the process. So it was rising. By this time, it had gotten to this point where I wanted it to be. I, you know, stuck the skewer inside of it, and the skewer came out clean and nice. Then I knew that the cake was ready. I brought it out from the pot and turned it upside down. Look at how beautiful this cake is. It didn't get burnt and all that. It was really delicious, very soft, succulent, supple, and very moist. So I had to cut the cake so that you see the inside of the cake. So even if you don't have an oven at home, okay, so you can just use your pot in making this cake, and you're still going to get exactly what you want out of the cake. Look at the inside of the cake. Can you see that?